megaflood is coming for California that will likely be the worst natural disaster in world history.
Next up, we have the Chilean megathrust. It's no secret that Chile has unfortunately become home to many earthquakes over the years, including the cataclysmic rupture of the 9.5 magnitude earthquake that took place in 1960, in which roughly 560 to 620 miles of rock along the stretch of the Nazca tectonic plate broke apart. So you're probably thinking to yourself, okay, this was supposed to be a list of natural disasters for 2024. Well, have no fear. Or do, because it's predicted that another West Coast earthquake disaster is ready to go at any minute, with some referring to the inferred event as the Chilean megathrust. Not only this, but the ominously named megathrust is also predicted to be followed up by a devastating tsunami. Again, you're thinking, okay, that's terrible, but how does it translate to the end of the world? Well, you see, much like these questions, earthquakes are reoccurring, and action triggers action, meaning the more we have, the more we get. Now, for my Canadian friends out there who are thinking that because of the Canadian Shield they don't need to worry, remember that not only do earthquakes trigger earthquakes, but they can also cause erosion and even breakage to the tectonic plates beneath the Earth's surface. So who really knows how long that protection is gonna last? Next up, we have landslides, and I do apologize to the Stevie Nicks fans because no, I am not talking about Fleetwood Mac, but rather the movement of a massive amount of land, rock, or debris down a slope with the power to wipe out mountainous towns, islands, cities, and more. A recent study released by NASA in 2020 claims that the rising of the Earth's average temperature, along with excess rainfall, has put specifically Asia at extreme risk of landslides, with an increase in both frequency and magnitude. These events could cause a diminish in fresh water supply, a creation of landslide dams, which is debris piled up and blocking waterways, causing flooding. These events can also cause damage to many areas downstream of the origin site, even up to hundreds of miles away. If you live in a relatively flat area, you can breathe easy tonight, but maybe not that easy. You see, most of the world relies heavily on trade with Asian countries, so even if the landslides don't get us directly, who knows what it could do to the economy. Moving on to ecological catastrophe, aka ecosystem collapse. Now, it's debatable whether or not this particular event would or would not be considered a natural disaster, as it's largely due to humans' impact on the Earth, but seeing as it pertains to the loss of natural diversity on a global scale, I personally would classify it as such. You see, as we grow to meet the demands of our growing population, we are clearing lands and natural agriculture, causing a decline and displacement of many plants and animals. When this happens, certain populations decline, which can put the whole ecosystem out of whack. For instance, the decline in moose population in Canada has allowed more balsam fir saplings to live, as they're no longer being gobbled up by the giant creatures. Fir trees pull carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere. So, mathematically, more fir trees, less carbon dioxide. The balance of the Earth is disrupted, which in turn leads to changes in air quality, massive changes in plants and animal populations, and extreme weather disturbances, which very well might lead to our downfall. Speaking of extreme weather disturbances, next up we have wildfires. I've seen it, you've seen it, we've all seen it over the past few years. Wildfires have been everywhere, from California to Canada, all the way over to Australia, and everywhere in between. Scorched earth is on the rise. But the crazy part is, wildfires actually used to be a good thing. A forest's way of releasing valuable nutrients stored on the forest floor in order to regenerate plants and vegetation and create a highly lush and biodiverse environment. The problem is that they've gotten out of hand. Well, kind of. Of course, we recognize the tragedy of fires caused by the hands of humans and gender reveals, but the reason natural forest fires have become such a threat to communities lies largely to do with the fact that communities have become such a threat to forests. You see, as cities expand and move outwards, we take up more land, and eventually that land pushes into the domain of the forest, and therefore forest fires. This of course leads to disasters and tragedy within the directly affected communities, along with widespread decline in air quality as the fire spreads into unfamiliar territory and begins burning more than the natural native resources. Fire, now water. I feel like Avatar.
Next up, we delve into the daunting realm of Category 6 hurricanes. In a world where climate change is heating up our oceans, the once theoretical possibility of hurricanes surpassing the current Category 5 scale is becoming increasingly plausible. These supercharged storms, a notch above the highest level on the Saifir-Simpson hurricane wind scale, could pack up winds exceeding 200 miles per hour. As somebody who is in kilometers, that's even more kilometers. That's crazy. The implications are staggering. With such ferocious power, these hurricanes could cause unimaginable damage, dwarfing the destruction caused by their predecessors. Their increased intensity and frequency not only signal a profound shift in our planet's climate dynamics, but also pose a significant challenge to coastal cities, demanding measures in disaster preparedness and response. Next up, we have the haunting specter of an H5N1 avian influenza pandemic that looms as a significant global threat. This strain of bird flu is notorious for its high mortality rate in birds, and it has also caused severe illness and death in humans who have come into close contact with infected birds. The primary concern is the virus's potential mutation that could enable it to transmit easily between humans. Such a mutation could ignite a catastrophic pandemic, possibly more severe than what we will call Schmovid-19. The world has already witnessed the profound societal and economic disruptions caused by the panorama, and H5N1 panorama could present even greater challenges as our current vaccines and treatments might be less effective against this novel and potentially more viral strain. The global health community remains vigilant as the emergence of such a virus would require rapid response and international cooperation to prevent a disaster of unprecedented scale. There we go. In an era marked by drastic climactic shifts, the shadow of mega floods looms large. These are not your typical seasonal floods, they are colossal in scale, capable of submerging vast areas underwater for prolonged periods. Triggered by extreme weather patterns such as unprecedented rainfall or rapid melting of snow and ice, these deluges have the potential to reoccur, reminiscent of historical great floods. The impact of such events is profound and far-reaching. Entire regions could find themselves underwater, leading to catastrophic consequences for millions of people. Infrastructure, homes, and livelihoods could be washed away in an instant, leaving lasting scars on the affected communities. The environmental repercussions are severe, with ecosystems facing irreversible damage, threatening both biodiversity and land productivity. Next up, we have mega droughts. Prolonged megadroughts are a formidable climactic phenomenon characterized by their extensive duration, often spanning several decades and impacting vast geographical areas such as the southwestern United States. These relentless droughts would lead to acute water shortages, affecting both urban and rural communities. Water scarcity would not only disrupt daily life, but also impact agriculture productivity, leading to crop failures and a significant strain on food supplies. The economic repercussions would be profound, affecting industries reliant on water and agriculture, and potentially leading to increased prices and shortages of foods and goods. Additionally, the environmental consequences would be severe, including the loss of biodiversity, increased wildfire risks, and the transformation of landscapes. And finally, let's discuss a global heatwave emergency. Okay, picture this. Major cities around the world grappling with consecutive days where temperatures would soar above 50 degrees Celsius, that's 122 degrees Fahrenheit. Such extreme heat would not only create a dire health crisis, with risks of heat stroke and dehydration skyrocketing, but also place an immense strain on power grids as millions turn on air conditioning for relief. The demand could lead to widespread blackouts, further exacerbating the crisis. The impact on wildlife and ecosystems would also be catastrophic. Urban wildlife, unaccustomed to such temperatures, would face severe challenges, and the heat could disrupt delicate ecological balances, leading to unforeseen consequences. In essence, a global heat wave of this magnitude would be an unprecedented event, testing the resilience of our cities, health systems, and the natural world.
Starting off our list
are solar flares. Most energy from a solar flare is radiated away as ultraviolet and X-ray light. However, the intense energy of a flare can also heat up nearby gas in the sun's atmosphere, launching enormous blobs of charged particles known as coronal mass ejection (CMEs) out into space. Now, if that happens, radio and radar systems around the world can black out, and electrical grids may become overloaded and lose power, which would cause absolute chaos. Now, some experts fear that a sufficiently large CME could create an internet apocalypse by overloading undersea internet cables and leaving parts of the world without web access for weeks or months, which is such a scary thought. Long-standing blackouts could potentially cost America alone $41.5 billion a day. Not to mention, with the electrical grid down, the economy would be greatly destabilized. Now, satellites and space stations which orbit beyond the protection of Earth's atmosphere could also be debilitated by the renegade radiation of CMEs. Now, space weather experts at NASA and other agencies take this threat seriously and closely monitor the sun for potentially hazardous activity. Next up, we have the Toba supervolcano. Lake Toba supervolcano on the Indonesian island of Sumatra is currently home to the largest volcanic lake on Earth, formed 74,000 years ago when it last blew in the biggest eruption for 25 million years. It is estimated that around 2,800 cubic kilometers of volcanic ash and lava were thrown into the atmosphere, and it may be about to erupt again. As with any super eruption, huge quantities of ash and sulfur dioxide produced can have a devastating effect on the global climate. But a number of factors make the prospect of a Toba super eruption much more intimidating than, say, one at Yellowstone. Toba is located on the densely populated island of Sumatra, home of over 50 million vulnerable people, and is only 40 kilometers from the Indian Ocean, in which catastrophic tsunamis would certainly be generated. Additionally, reports of volcanic gases and heating of the ground surface have led to suggestions that the volcano may again be waking up. Now, if it happened again, it would blacken the sky, send temperatures plummeting, destroy crops globally, and produce huge tsunamis. It would likely end the lives of millions immediately and many, many more over the course of a few years. Moving on to the Helena slump. A great danger is posed by the possible collapse of the southern portion of Kilauea volcano on the big island of Hawaii. The south slope is geologically unstable. Called the Helena slump, this could drop 12,000 cubic kilometers of rock into the Pacific Ocean, generating a mega tsunami that would go around the Pacific Ocean and reach the western seaboard of North America in a matter of hours, overpowering coastal communities. There is evidence that a similar collapse of the nearby Mauna Loa around 12,000 years ago generated a tsunami with a run-up height of over 400 meters. Now, even as recently as 1975, movement of the Helena slump generated a smaller yet destructive tsunami that reached California. Given that the slump is continually active and moving, it might only take a jolt from an earthquake in the tectonically active state to set in motion this catastrophic chain of events. Now, the scary thing is that we can't do anything to stop it, and this threat will be looming over us.
Next up, we have floods. Whether they are due to rising water levels or torrential downpour, floods have the ability to devastate populated areas and displace millions of people from their homes, disrupting life on a local, national, and even international level. The countries affected contribute to the economic success of others. In 2023, in India alone, over 12 million people had to flee for their lives after deadly floods and landslides devastated homes in Nepal and Bangladesh. And we are seeing this happen more frequently, whether it be due to climate change and rising sea levels, or a decrease in biodiversity leading to a change in air quality causing heavy rainfall. Some other countries who are at high risk for flooding include Nigeria, the Philippines, Yemen, Kenya, Chad, Japan, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, and Somalia. Taking it down south for this next one, we have Caribbean tsunamis. So I actually grew up on a small island in the Caribbean, and while we did do fire drills, we actually did earthquake and tsunami drills way more. When the alarm went off for the earthquake drill, we would take shelter under tables or door frames, and then, because generally tsunamis follow soon after, the entire student body would gather outside and climb to the top of a small nearby mountain. Now mind you, it was a small school of about 250 people, but it still took over half the day. In recent years, however, tsunamis have become even more prevalent as the rate of earthquakes increase and sea levels rise. But there's actually another completely different reason that the Caribbean specifically is currently under threat from megawaves, and that reason is a mega unstable volcano located in the Canary Islands. The volcano, located on the island of La Palma, is under close watch as it's dangerously unstable and has the capacity to plunge into the ocean at pretty much any time. According to Dr. Simon Day of the Benfield Hazard Research Centre at the University College of London, such an instance would cause a mega tsunami that could wipe out many island nations. Alright, it's about time to get interstellar up in here, as the next ultimate catastrophe is the collapse of the vacuum, like the literal vacuum of space. So think of our existence as a balloon that's full of air. The air inside of the balloon pushes against this parameter, keeping it full, and in our case, keeping the universe, and specifically Earth, inhabitable. The vacuum in this example would be the empty space. Now, if that vacuum were to collapse, all of the empty space would begin to disappear, as anything that's not empty space, example people, plants, animals, and things, would be pulled together in a giant mass, making that empty space smaller and smaller until it eventually collapses in on itself, thus ending our very existence swiftly and absolutely. On a lighter note, but not really, another possibility for the end of days is the reversal of Earth's magnetic field. You see, every few 100,000 years, the Earth's magnetic field decreases to almost nothing for perhaps a century, then later reappears with the North and South Pole flipped. Here's the thing. The last time this happened was 780,000 years ago, so like, we're due. In fact, in the past century alone, the strength of our magnetic field has already decreased by 5%. Why is this absolutely terrifying? Well, the Earth's magnetic field deflects particle storms, cosmic rays from the sun, and even subatomic particles from deep space. As this protection decreases, we run an increased risk of these particles and rays striking the Earth's atmosphere and further eroding the already dwindling ozone layer. Not to mention, many animals actively rely on the Earth's magnetic field for survival, so who knows what impact this may have on biodiversity. Next up, we have mass insanity. Natural, maybe. Disaster, 100%. I mean, humans are naturally occurring carbon life forms, so I felt like I had to include this one. You see, while globally the human population is improving physically, mental health has been on a steady and worryingly rapid decline. In fact, it is predicted that depression will become the second leading cause of death and loss of productivity, right behind cardiovascular disease. So, why is this happening? Well, believe it or not, it's actually a combination of increased lifespan, leaving more time to experience loneliness, and overloading the human brain. This dynamic duo has not only led to an increase in depression, anxiety, and other mental health issues, but also fear-mongering, complacency, pessimism, lack of motivation, as well as an uprising in cults and erratic behavior. Honestly, pretty scary to think about what will become of Earth if we keep on heading down this road. And in our number one spot, you know I had to do it, we have alien invasion. Okay, before you run to the comments and absolutely annihilate me for including this on the list, I'm not actually talking about humanoid extraterrestrials. I'm talking about viruses, specifically ones that span outside of their native range. You see, alien bacteria and viruses have the power to topple agriculture, destroying forests and farmlands alike. It's not just human health we have to worry about. The likelihood of this happening? Well, I'll be honest, alien bacteria and viruses are vastly underrepresented when it comes to ecology studies, which in simple terms just means we don't really know. While it could be a far out possibility, it could also well be a very imminent and very serious threat to life as we know it. And the fact that viruses and diseases are so easily widespread, what with travel by car and train and boats and planes and whatever else there is, I'd say there's a pretty safe bet that it could happen. Again. And then of course there's actual aliens, but let's save that for another time.
Well, starting off this list, number 10, extreme wildfires.
This is what the firefight looks like overnight in the hills outside Los Angeles. a dangerous storm of hot embers raining down on crews as they walk a gauntlet of fire.
Okay, we all know that unfortunately California is no stranger to wildfires because of the temperatures in the winter and the dry summers, making it one of those flammable places on Earth. California is unfortunately the target for some of the most relentless and intense wildfires that the country has ever seen. And some of these fires are pretty recent. These fires are exceptionally fast and they leave devastating damage. In the past, wildfires have ruined hundreds of thousands of acres and thousands of homes. People have lost their lives, and unfortunately these wildfires show no sign of stopping. The firefighters and their resources are stretched to their capacity, and sadly these wildfires have become, the norm. If we don't do something about it, these wildfires could potentially wreak havoc on the entire state, and if we're not careful, they pose a huge risk of becoming mega fires that can threaten both human lives and the ecosystem as well that we depend on really heavily. And you know what? It's gonna get a lot worse before it gets better. A super eruption explodes in at number 9 on this list. Do you guys remember how much the Yellowstone supervolcano was in the news? Well, the threat of that erupting has nothing on this other supervolcano in Indonesia. The Lake Toba supervolcano is located on the island of Sumatra. This is where the largest volcanic lake is on Earth. Its last eruption was 74,000 years ago. It is estimated that around 2,800 cubic kilometers of volcano ash and lava were pushed into the atmosphere, and guess what? It might erupt again, like pretty damn soon.
75,000 years ago on the Indonesian island of Sumatra, the supervolcano Toba erupts, sending the entire planet into climatic chaos.
If this thing erupts, the amount of ash and sulfur dioxide produced will have an enormous effect on the climate. But the fun doesn't stop there. Toba is located on an island that is home to over 50 million people. I mean, this is an island I never knew about, and it has more people than Canada. Canada has 30 million. Well, 50 million people are going to be vulnerable if this thing blows. Oh, and it's also about 40 kilometers from the Indian Ocean, so it can cause catastrophic tsunamis as well. And the scary thing about this whole thing is that there are literally nothing that we can do to stop it. How do you stop a supervolcano? Climate change will reshape the surface of Earth, and this takes us to number 8.
Studies suggest that a global temperature increase of just 3 degrees Celsius would displace more than 600 million people. The average global temperature has already risen a full degree in less than 50 years, and it's continuing to increase more and more rapidly.
I hate to break it to you guys, but climate change isn't just a theory or, fake news. The gradual rise in surface temperature here on Earth could literally reshape our planet. Our overuse of fossil fuels release greenhouse gases that interfere with the stratosphere, and as a result of that, instead of repelling heat rays from the sun, we are now trapping in heat, and we have a lot of evidence to support that. Our sea levels are rising, and we're experiencing extreme droughts, and all of those wildfires and severe weather storms are all the causes of climate change. So what will our planet look like in the future? Well, it's not going to be pretty according to this. Scientists who specialize in climate change predict that by 2050, so that's in our lifetimes, we're all going to be in a lot of trouble. There's a chance that human civilization could be seriously threatened, and that's if we don't do something about it now.
Now let's discuss gamma ray bursts. Gamma rays are the most dangerous forms of radiation. Gamma ray bursts likely result from the merging of two dying stars and can travel through almost anything, so that is not good for us humans. The event generates powerful beams of energy, firing charged particles into space in a spectacular surge of light. Now, if Earth were to be in the path of a gamma ray burst, radiation would destroy our atmosphere and produce nitrogen oxides, a gas that would eradicate the ozone layer. Without the ozone layer, the sun's ultraviolet rays would reach the surface unimpeded, wiping out the plankton in the ocean that produces oxygen to the atmosphere and disrupting the food chain, while causing other serious effects such as skin cancer. Presently, mechanisms for this generation of gamma ray burst emissions are not fully understood, so we just have to hope that one strong enough doesn't wipe us out. Now we have the San Andreas Fault. The San Andreas Fault is a continental right lateral strike slip transform fault that extends roughly 700 150 miles through the Californias. It forms the tectonic boundary between the Pacific Plate and the North American Plate. Now, a study found that the risk of a large earthquake here may be increasing more rapidly than scientists had previously believed. The risk is currently concentrated on the southern section of the fault, aka the region around Los Angeles, because strong earthquakes have occurred relatively recently on the central 1857 and northern 1906 segments of the fault, while the southern section has not seen any similar rupture for at least 300 years. Now, if or when it ruptures, it would be strongly felt and potentially cause significant damage throughout much of Southern California. All the data suggests that the fault is ready for the next big earthquake, but exactly when the triggering will happen and when the earthquake will occur is unknown, which is one of the scariest parts. Now we have the North Sea tsunami. The North Sea may seem an unlikely place for a devastating tsunami, but climate change has led to concern that a submarine landslide in the region might lead to just this. Scientists have suggested that over 6,000 years ago, a sharp sea level rise attributed to a changing climate and the rapid melting of ice, and it added weight to the submarine glacial deposits at the edge of the Norwegian continental shelf, destabilizing them and causing a 300-kilometer long landslide. This generated a tsunami that reached heights of up to 20 meters in the Shetland Islands, 10 in the Norwegian coast, and 6 meters off the northern and western coast of Scotland. Now, should Earth experience such rapidly warming climate again, and experience the associated melting of the Greenland and/or West Antarctic ice sheets, a similar event might as well be possible, which today would affect the coastal populations of Scotland and Norway and perhaps even London. Onto the Cascaden Big One. At the bottom of the Pacific Ocean, just off the west coast of North America, and running from Northern California to Vancouver Island, is a subduction zone, a place where the Pacific Ocean floor is being forced beneath the North American landmass. Now, the rate of movement of the ocean floor here is currently just 40 millimeters a year, but the upper part of the system is currently stuck, meaning that the North American plate is being compressed. At some point, the pressure being built up has to be released, and this will be in the form of a massive earthquake, perhaps up to a magnitude of 9. This could cause a collapse of the coastal region of up to 2 meters and a possible horizontal displacement of 30 meters. Now, shortly after the intense shaking subsides, the coastal community will be struck by a tsunami that can make the 2011 Japanese wave look small. Around 7 million people live in this region, from Vancouver through Seattle to Tacoma and Portland. Scientists have calculated that in the last 10,000 years, the region has suffered 41 large earthquakes, occurring with an average interval of 244 years, and the last was a magnitude 9, and that was 315 years ago, so this could happen at any time. Next up is that an asteroid hits Earth. On February 15, 2013, a fireball streaked across the sky over Russia and exploded in a window-shattering airburst. Now, it was nearly a disaster, as a ground strike may have ended the lives of tens of thousands of people. Hours after the event, a space rock 3 times larger threaded the space between Earth and its artificial satellites. Now, had this asteroid struck a densely populated location like New York, it would have destroyed Midtown instantly, blasted down surrounding skyscrapers, and rained firestorm spawning meteors for hours. Now, short-term death tolls might have reached the millions. Now, of course, water covers 71% of Earth, and many large inland regions remain sparsely populated. Thus, in the rare case such a massive rock actually hit Earth, it would stand a small chance of striking a population center. But a nation wrecker or even a planet killer could come knocking someday, perhaps sooner than we'd like to think. Now we have a megathrust earthquake. On April 1st, 2014, a magnitude 8.2 earthquake occurred 97 kilometers off the northwest coast of Chile, causing landslides and a tsunami to hit the coast. This earthquake created the possibility for an even larger earthquake for Chile in the near future due to the location of the earthquake. Now, the earthquake originated from the subduction zone, where one tectonic plate, the Nazca Plate, is plunging underneath another, the South American Plate. This subduction zone lies within the Ring of Fire, an arc in the Pacific containing 75% of the world's active volcanoes, which causes many of the world's seismic activity. When a tectonic plate moves under another, faults can come under severe amounts of stress, and any release of tension causes seismic activity, namely earthquakes. Now, the April 2014 earthquake was a megathrust earthquake, or a major earthquake caused by the release of tension from a subduction zone. Now, it only relieved 33% of the tension on the faults, leaving the rest to be relieved in the near future. And last on our list is black holes. Our galaxy is full of black holes, dozens of miles wide. side. Their gravity is so strong they swallow everything. Now, based on such observations and even more theoretical arguments, researchers guesstimate there are about 10 million black holes in the Milky Way. Now, if a normal star were moving towards us, we'd know it, but with a black hole, there is little warning. Assuming that black holes are randomly distributed throughout the galaxy and that there really are a few hundred million of them present, this likely means that the closest black hole to Earth is only around 40 to 80 light years away. Now, if a black hole contacts the Earth, of course it will swallow us. But we don't need to be swallowed in order to suffer catastrophic consequences. If a black hole simply passes very close by the Earth, it would cause what's known as a tidal disruption event, an event where the black hole's gravitational influence on the closer side of the Earth is so much stronger than the farther side of the Earth that it actually begins ripping our planet apart. Similarly, the top side of Earth would be pulled down relative to the center, while the bottom side gets pulled upward. What I'm pretty much saying is the gravitational and atomic bonds holding Earth together could be shattered, transforming our planet from a solid sphere into a thin, stretched debris stream that looks like a piece of spaghetti. Now, in fact, astronomers have named this exact process spaghettification because of the stretching effects that black holes have. Starting off this list in our number 10 spot, we have my personal least favorite one on this list, locusts. There are over 30 million known insect species that fall under two categories, either destructive or beneficial. Most insect species are very beneficial to our ecosystems, but there are about 600 species that are destructive, and if these 600 are left unchecked, they have the potential to ruin life on Earth as we know it. One of the most destructive species are the gross and disgusting locusts. Adult locusts are insatiable and able to eat their own body weight in food every day, and they're also able to travel great distances and reproduce very quickly. 2020 has already seen places being absolutely swarmed with locusts, like the swarm that hit northeast Kenya that was 3 times the size of New York City. Some of the other places that have been hit hard this year include regions in Ethiopia, Pakistan, India, Argentina, Paraguay, Uruguay, and Yemen. Scientists say that climate change is one of the biggest influences in these outbreaks because the extreme heat, strong cyclones, and unusually heavy rains in the Arabic Peninsula are the perfect conditions for adult locust populations to thrive and grow. If this crisis doesn't get under control and continues to grow, this could have an extreme impact on food productions, food security, and the livelihood of millions of people who depend on their crops for income, as well as the spread of diseases that the bugs bring. And honestly, it would be my absolute nightmare to have all of those gross things flying around everywhere. In our number 9 spot, we have a supernova. Before I dive into this one, don't forget to like this video. A supernova is what happens after a star has reached the end of its life, which usually happens once or twice a century in the Milky Way and tends to happen closer to the center of our galaxy. The star Betelgeuse, which is in the Orion constellation, is a super red giant and nearing the end of its life. It could become a supernova at any point from now to the next million years. If a supernova happened too close to Earth, its radiation could severely damage our ozone layer, which would leave us totally exposed to the ultraviolet rays from the sun. It could also ionize nitrogen and oxygen in our atmosphere, which would create this sort of smog made out of nitrous oxide in our atmosphere. Nitrous oxide is what laughing gas is, so I'm not exactly sure what that would mean for humans. Heading on down to number 8, we have a rogue planet. There is a possibility that a rogue planet from another solar system could enter ours. A rogue planet is a planet that does not orbit a star like how Earth orbits the sun. If this were to happen, it would be catastrophic. It would potentially alter all of our planet's orbits, and the bigger planet, the more of an effect it would have. Altering the planet's orbits would inevitably alter Earth's orbit as well, which could take us too close to the sun that we fry, or too far from the sun that we freeze, or even kick us out of our own solar system. Sometimes I forget that we're literally on just a huge floating rock. If all of this wasn't scary enough, a rogue planet could also crash into Earth because it's probably happened before. Around 4.5 billion years ago, an object around the size of Mars called Theia crashed into Earth, and that's how the moon ended up being created. If all of these other things happened, it would definitely end human life. Also, the Earth could become a rogue planet. Space is very confusing. There is said to be 2 rogue planets for every star in the Milky Way galaxy, which would lead me to the question, how many stars are in the Milky Way galaxy? Well, the answer is a lot. According to NASA, it is estimated at 100 billion on the low end and 400 billion on the high end. So at least double that for the amount of rogue planets, and you've got me feeling pretty stressed out.
Number 7, megathrust earthquake in Chile. This earthquake has already erupted in April 2014, and the results were absolutely horrific. It was an 8.2 magnitude earthquake that caused landslides and tsunamis to hit the coast. But the scary thing about that is, it created the possibility for an even larger earthquake to erupt in the near future. This earthquake erupted near the Ring of Fire, which is where 75% of the world's most active volcanoes can be found. So when one earthquake erupts in this sensitive area, it causes faults to come under severe amounts of stress, and it can ignite other devastating earthquakes. So basically, if this same volcano erupts, which experts are predicting that it will do, we are going to be in a whole lot of trouble. There's going to be a lot of people, including myself, saying, is this real life right now? Mount Fuji eruption takes us to number 6. Mount Fuji is the highest volcano in Japan, standing in at 3,776 meters high, which is, it's pretty tall. And it is considered to be one of Japan's 3 sacred mountains. The last time it erupted was in December 1707. It is considered to be a dormant volcano, but we still have to be vigilant and continue to observe it, because if we aren't prepared for it, well, Mount Fuji could do some serious harm. If Mount Fuji were to erupt in the near future, it would hit areas that are at least 1,000 kilometers away from the base with volcanic ash. A Japanese government study warned us that as many as 750,000 people would be forced to evacuate the surrounding areas and Japan's transportation system, and that's due to the amount of volcanic ash that would interfere with the machinery. And if that's the case, people wouldn't be able to leave their homes or receive food or even medical attention. A professor also warned us that an eruption could happen by the end of 2015, so I guess we're long overdue for that one, because last time I checked, I think we're in 2019. So, but you know what? That actually terrifies me even more, because it means it's overdue. Just like the San Andreas Fault, isn't that like due any time now? Moving on to number 5, the east coast of the United States will be submerged. It's not even a question of will it be submerged, it's when will it be submerged. Do you guys remember Hurricane Sandy? Well, Hurricane Sandy, it hit the Caribbean, and it also hit up the East Coast in late October of 2012. This massive storm left thousands of people dead, thousands homeless, and millions without power. NASA said that Hurricane Sandy was a freak storm, and they predict a storm like this one will probably only happen about once in 700 years. But due to the current sea levels and the amount that the water is rising, it is predicted that the East Coast might be underwater by 2050. During a study, the rising sea levels have been going on since 1987, and they've been rising about 0.3 millimeters per year. That may not seem like a lot to you guys, but over time, it can be catastrophic. The sea levels on the East Coast are rising 3 to 4 times faster than anywhere else in the world. So yeah, New York City can literally be flooded by 2050, and this is a pretty popular theory. I guess you guys should visit the Statue of Liberty before it goes for a swim. Last time I was in New York and I tried to visit the Statue of Liberty, it was actually under construction, so I never got the opportunity, but something tells me I should go soon. Number 4, the largest tsunami ever. First, let me give you guys some perspective. Take a look at this picture right here. Could you imagine seeing this massive wave like coming towards you? You know, you're in the ocean and yeah, you see that coming for you. I don't know what I would do. Probably close my eyes and just accept fate, because I don't think there's anything that I can do. I would definitely look at it and be like, is this real life right now? And then, yeah. But sadly, this can be a harsh reality in the near future. Scientists predict that a volcano in the Canary Islands will erupt, causing the largest tsunami in recorded history. According to their calculations, this gigantic wave will travel at 800 kilometers an hour or 500 miles per hour. It will be 330 feet tall when it hits land, and it will reach Florida within 9 hours of being created. So if you're considering buying a condo in Florida, you might want to think again, unless you are a risk taker, which me, I don't know if I'd take many risks. But I did jump out of a plane and went skydiving. That's a pretty big risk, right? Devastating solar storms brings us to number 3. Yeah, that's right. One of the biggest disasters that could be facing mankind might not have even originated from our planet. This potentially fatal disaster could come directly from the sun. According to a recent study, there is a 12% chance that a major solar storm could hit Earth. But the odds could exponentially increase. If this happens, it would interfere with radio, GPSs, satellite communications. It would be pretty bad, which could also affect millions of electronics from around the world. And you know what? The fun doesn't stop there. Power grids would be out of commission, which means a worldwide blackout. I don't know what I would do without my cell phone. And if this does happen in the near future, it can cost about $1 to $2 trillion just in the first year of impact, and it would take us a very long time to get back to where we are. Now, in at number 2, a disease outbreak. We recently learned that the Earth isn't immune to outbreaks of deadly diseases. Ebola, the plague, mumps, measles, and scarlet fever could all make a comeback if we aren't careful. Yes, we have vaccines, but unfortunately outbreaks of dangerous diseases will soon be our new reality. Things like refusing to get vaccinated, lowered immunity, drug resistance, and climate change are all major contributing factors to this threat. And think about all of the other diseases that we haven't even discovered yet. Right now our population is about 7.53 billion, that's at the time of this recording, but it's expected to rise to about 10 billion people by 2050. I mean, a lot is about to go down in 2050. People are going to need more places to live and food to eat, which means an increase in urbanization, population, migration, and killing off natural habitats and converting them to farms. So the potential for new pathogens to rise is something that will happen in the foreseeable future. All of the hand sanitizer in the world won't be enough to save us all. But as soon as an outbreak happens, I'm going to try to attempt to buy all the hand sanitizer. And now, top of your list, number 1, we have World War III. With the rise of terrorism, hostility between, Russia and the US, and conflicts in Syria and the Ukraine, well, these could all be the driving forces behind a potential World War III. I mean, just saying World War III is absolutely terrifying. Oh, let's not forget about North Korea's strange fascination with nuclear weapons. So yeah, if we aren't careful, a full-on war has the potential to break out, and since our weapons are so powerful now with all the technology, they are more deadly than before. The world could literally be wiped out. Have you ever heard the saying, I don't know how World War III will end, but I do know how World War IV will start. It will start with sticks and stones. Donald Trump said that he wants to modernize America's nuclear arsenal, but we don't know what North Korea has up their sleeves or what kind of stealth operations are going on in Russia.
There are many things that could trigger World War III, but I hope those in charge of firing the guns realize what's at stake is way more important than an aggressive response.
Number 10. Black holes, incredibly scary, incredibly dark. And although that clip may not seem that scary, black holes are indeed terrifying considering what little we truly know about them. Not to mention, researchers believe there are roughly about 10 million of them in our solar system. I know our solar system is huge, but researching this, I didn't know there was 10 million of them coming for us. This is actual footage from the Hubble telescope in 2015. Black holes suck anything and everything in with their gravitational pull and emit enormous amounts of energy. No one even knows what's inside of one because, well, no one has been able to be sucked in one and come back to Earth and tell us all about it. So before we get into number 9, make sure you guys hit the like button on this video. It really helps us out. And head over to my Instagram at Atlanta Productions, because as soon as I get a hold of PlayStation 5s, I'm going to be doing giveaways. I'm going to try to get my hands on 5 of them, so make sure to go follow me at Atlanta Productions. And look for this contest picture and just tell me what games would you guys play. Alright, moving right along, number 9.
But you'd feel their effect if they were to hit the planet.
Okay, what is that?
Gamma ray bursts, or GRBs, are the most violent explosions in the universe.
So these things can happen when two neutron stars collide or when a black hole swallows one of the stars, but however it happens, life on Earth would not be able to survive gamma rays. Even just 1 second of these rays could do enough damage to wipe out the Earth. But luckily they're said to only happen in like once in every 10 million years. So the only question is, did one happen over 10 million years ago? Because are we due? Are we due for one? I don't think so. I'm hoping not. Next up, number 8.
The 1918 flu killed 675,000 Americans. 50 to 100 million people died worldwide.
Of course we have to throw this one on here. Well, pandemics are a serious way to wipe out the Earth. I mean, I feel like the Earth is being wiped out right now. A lot of us had a history lesson this year from the 1919 Spanish flu, and it's so crazy that 100 years later, it's happening again. And I'm not even sure if the Spanish flu shut down the entire world like how the world is being shut down today. I mean, when we're like 50 years from now, this is gonna be in our grandkids' history books. Absolutely insane that we're around for this. I mean, we were there for the 2008 recession. We're there for COVID-19. This is like a really hard lifetime, especially if you're from the 90s. We're going through a lot. And although most pandemics are said to be natural disasters, one thing this year has made us question is if this was a man-made pandemic. Is someone out there trying to control the population? Is biological warfare a real thing?
In our number 7 spot today, we have the potential cooling of the Earth's core. The Earth is surrounded by a magnetic shield called a magnetosphere, which is generated by the Earth's rotation. This shield is our protection from things like solar winds and high energy particles, and some researchers believe that it also deflects ionizing particles that come from the sun. Without this deflection, it is believed that these particles would wear away the Earth's atmosphere, which would lead to the end of life on this planet. As the Earth rotates, a thick shell of liquid iron and nickel, which is the Earth's outer core, swirls around the Earth's inner core, which is just a big hot ball of metal. This is all great and obviously works well for us, but what happens if the Earth's core cools down? Because it will happen. Hopefully not for billions of years, but scientists know it's going to happen sometimes. The outer core would become solid like the inner core, and that wonderful swirl we have will just stop, which will end the magnetosphere we have going on. With no magnetosphere, we have no protection from solar winds, and our atmosphere would be gone. This is what scientists believe happened on Mars around 3.7 billion years ago that caused its now very thin atmosphere. But the good news is that scientists are trying to find a way to restore Mars's atmosphere, and if they were able to figure it out with Mars, hopefully we can also figure it out if that were to happen on Earth. Moving on to number 6, we have a wandering star. When I first heard of a wandering star, I thought that it sounded like the cutest thing ever. But as it turns out, a wandering star really could be a recipe for disaster. A star that is wandering throughout our galaxy has the possibility of ending up a little too close to our sun, and could potentially find itself in the middle of the Oort cloud at the edge of our solar system. The cloud is extremely rocky, so if this were to happen, it would greatly increase the chances of a huge comet flying towards the Earth. It's pretty obvious why a huge comet hurtling towards Earth would not be in our best interest. At our 5th and halfway mark, we have the heliosphere and its potential to become weakened. The sun's wind and solar magnetic field has helped create this bubble-like region around our entire solar system, which is called the heliosphere, and it shields us from any sort of interstellar medium. The sun follows its own path through the Milky Way, and we follow the sun. The sun will lead us through different sorts of space climates, and sometimes we will enter parts with more or less interstellar gas. We are currently in a patch that is less dense that was created by a supernova. When we leave the patch that we're in now, our heliosphere could end up being much less effective, which would leave Earth very exposed and vulnerable. It could potentially change our climate much more than what we're currently facing, which could make it impossible for any sort of life on Earth to continue. In our number 4 spot, we have a hypercane. So say an asteroid hit Earth and it didn't kill us all. Theoretically, that would be good, but but we would still potentially have to face a hypercane, which is literally just a mega hurricane that could wipe us all out. There isn't a ton known about hypercanes, but apparently they form over superheated seas, which is exactly what the ocean would be like after an asteroid hit Earth, and they have crazy and terrifying winds. It is said that a hypercane could see the storm getting as high as 25 miles, and the winds could be as fast as the speed of sound. A hypercane would ruin the Earth's ozone layer, which would of course not be good for us. It is said that when the asteroid that wiped out the dinosaurs hit, there was a hypercane that really solidified their extinction. So between an asteroid hit, a hypercane, and a ruined ozone layer, this one really isn't looking good for us. Moving on to number 3, we have a year without summer. We have all heard of extreme volcanic eruptions and supervolcanoes that could wipe us all out, and if you haven't, make sure you watch part 1 of this video. But what would happen if the initial eruption didn't end all living beings? Well, it could potentially be similar to what happened in 1815 after Mount Tambora erupted. This volcanic eruption was one of the worst in our known history, and it hurled a ginormous cloud of ash into the stratosphere, which then blocked the sun's rays and caused a major temperature cool down and more weather distortions for the years to follow. This could happen to us again. If a major volcano erupts and the same thing happened, we could be facing much larger repercussions. Last time this happened, the world went a year without summer because of the change in climate. This would have unparalleled effects on our crops and agriculture, and with how large the world's population is and how difficult it is to feed everyone already, who knows what would happen? Not to mention how the lack of available food would lead to soaring prices that would be unsustainable for most to even be able to afford to eat. Also, after the 1815 eruption, there were droughts and floods in India that changed the ecology of the Bay of Bengal, which helped a new strain of cholera flourish that ended up killing millions. And in 2020, we know how quickly and devastating a new disease can be. In our number 2 spot, we have the reversal of Earth's magnetic shields. So we have the North Pole where Santa lives, and we have the South Pole where the penguins live, but what happens if our poles switched? Magnetically, I mean. Well, it's happened before, and it's going to happen again. The magnetic field of Earth is known to switch, and scientists know that the last time this happened was 773,000 years ago, but they're pretty stumped on figuring out exactly what causes this flip. Scientists have been able to use lava flows to get some information about the last magnetic flip. What they found is that around 795,000 years ago, Earth's magnetic dipole field began to collapse, and there was an excursion, which is when the magnetic field doesn't totally collapse in reverse, but it is very weak compared to its original strength. After a slight recovery, the field ends up collapsing and ended up switching orientations, which results in the polarity reversal. It's all very confusing and science-y, and I'm sure you're all wondering what this means for life on Earth. Well, scientists believe we are approaching the next reversal period, and when we go into that excursion part, like I mentioned before, where the magnetic field gets really weak, we will be way more exposed to cosmic rays, which can be extremely damaging to all life on Earth. There isn't a ton that is known about this whole process, and its timeline is greatly debated among the scientists who research it. In our number 1 spot today, we have climate change. Okay, so this one is more man-made than natural, but it still definitely deserves a spot on this list. Climate change is a super complex thing, and like I've said many times, I am not a scientist, but I'll do my best to explain what this means for us. Basically, scientists are saying that if we don't find alternate, less wasteful ways of doing things, the temperature of the Earth will rise by 5.4 degrees Fahrenheit by the year 2050. This might not seem like a lot, but it will have a huge impact on our planet. To name a few, the world's ice sheet would be gone, droughts would kill most of what's left of our Amazon rainforest, which is one of our biggest carbon offsets, Wildfires would ravage our land. 1/3 of the world's land would turn into desert, which would collapse entire ecosystems, starting with our coral reefs. This isn't even everything that would happen. Our planet and the life on it lives in this incredibly delicate balance, and just a few small changes can ruin life as we know it. Scientists say we have 10 years to reverse climate change, or else we might end up getting to that worst case scenario. Kicking off our list is the awe-inspiring, yet daunting Yellowstone supervolcano, a colossal force of nature hidden in plain sight beneath the serene landscapes of Yellowstone National Park. This supervolcano is no ordinary geological feature. It harbors a massive magma chamber stretching over an estimated area of 3,472 square miles. The scale and power of this supervolcano are hard to comprehend. If it were to erupt, the consequences would be cataclysmic. We're talking about the ejection of over 1,000 cubic kilometers of rock and ash into the atmosphere, an event that could radically transform landscapes, devastate ecosystems, and disrupt human life on an unprecedented scale. This eruption has the potential to spew volcanic material with such force that it could blanket large parts of North America, affecting areas thousands of miles away from the epicenter. Not only this, but the enormous volume of ash and particles thrust into the atmosphere could significantly reduce sunlight reaching the Earth's surface, leading to what scientists term a volcanic winter. This scenario would not only lower global temperatures, but could also disrupt agriculture systems and food supplies, leading to far-reaching impacts on human societies and natural environments. While the likelihood of such an eruption in the near future remains low, the mere existence of such a powerful force beneath one of America's most beloved national parks is a humbling reminder of the dynamic and ever-changing nature of our planet. Mother Nature's really out here keeping us on our toes, alright? You never know what to expect. Next on our list is the looming threat of the big one in the Cascadia subduction zone, a 620-mile fault line that runs along the Pacific Northwest. This region, encompassing parts of Washington, Oregon, and Northern California, is bracing for a potentially catastrophic earthquake. Geologists and seismologists, those are earthquake scientists, warn that this zone is not just overdue for a quake, but is capable of unleashing one with a magnitude of up to 9.0. Such a colossal seismic event could trigger devastating tsunamis, capable of inundating coastal areas with walls of water. The impact would extend far beyond the immediate shaking. We're talking about significant structural damage to buildings, bridges, and infrastructure, potentially cutting off essential services and disrupting millions of lives. Additionally, the aftermath could see a cascade of secondary disasters, including landslides and flooding, severely impacting the region's economy and environment. The Pacific Northwest's preparation and response plans are continuously evolving, as the potential for this seismic event poses quite a formidable challenge to the resilience of these communities. Next up, let's contemplate the potential havoc wreaked by a monster solar storm. Picture this, a colossal solar flare dwarfing our planet tenfold, unleashing torrents of electromagnetic radiation towards Earth. The scale is truly unimaginable. A tempest born from the sun, capable of engulfing our world in a maelstrom of charged particles. The consequences? Catastrophic. Such a storm could cripple satellites, rendering them inoperable and sending chunks of our advanced technology back to a pre-digital era. Bye-bye Starlink, okay? None of those little things, alright? They have no chance against a monster solar flare. Our power grids, the very backbone of our modern civilization, could face unprecedented outages, plunging vast regions into darkness for extended periods. I don't know about you, but I'm tired of living in unprecedented times. I want things to be very precedented, the day by day. This isn't merely about lights going out, it's about critical life support systems in hospitals, emergency services, and transportation networks all grinding to a halt. Communications would be severely disrupted, if not entirely entirely severed, isolating communities and hindering disaster response efforts. The aftermath of such a storm wouldn't be measured in days or weeks, but potentially months of recovery as we strive to rebuild the pillars of our technologically driven society. The ripple effect on global economies, healthcare, and daily life is a sobering reminder of our vulnerability to the whims of solar activity. Alright? So let's all be nice to the sun. Say sorry. I don't know. I'm just up here saying shit. Now let's delve into the critical issue of the melting Antarctic ice sheet. As global temperatures continue to rise, largely due to human-induced climate change, the stability of the West Antarctic ice sheet is increasingly at risk. Scientists are particularly concerned about this region because much of the ice sheet rests on bedrock that is below sea level, making it vulnerable to warm ocean currents. If a significant portion of this ice sheet were to collapse, it could trigger a catastrophic rise in global sea levels, potentially by several meters. Such an event would have profound implications for coastal cities across the globe, exposing them to unprecedented flooding and erosion. It's not the last time I'm gonna say unprecedented, I'm just gonna warn ya. This scenario isn't just a distant possibility, it's a pressing concern that underscores the urgent need for effective climate action to mitigate these risks. The impact on human populations, ecosystems, and global weather patterns would be profound, reshaping coastlines and displacing millions of people. About halfway on our list, we have the threat posed by an undetected asteroid, straight out of a sci-fi horror movie. Despite the efforts of space agencies worldwide, which vigilantly monitor thousands of near-Earth objects, also called NEOs, the possibility of a surprise asteroid remains a haunting prospect. These celestial bodies, often hurtling through space at incredible speeds, can easily go unnoticed, especially if they're small or come from certain directions that are harder to observe, like from the direction of the sun. Alright? It's really hard to look directly at it. The concern is not unfounded. Even a relatively small asteroid, undetected until it's too late, could unleash an energy equivalent to multiple nuclear bombs upon impact. But beyond localized devastation, such an impact could also inject vast amounts of dust and debris into the atmosphere, potentially triggering climactic changes on a global scale. These changes could disrupt weather patterns, affect food production, and have long-lasting environmental impacts.
I'll move right along in at number 7. Okay, what you just saw is a clip from a tsunami in Japan. This really happened. Tsunamis aren't anything new, but with climate change becoming more and more devastating to our home on Earth, if sea levels continue to rise because of ice melting globally, we can see a lot of our world underwater. It would definitely wipe out humanity and the entire Earth would become a modern day Atlantis. And I don't know about you guys, but I can't hold my breath for that long. Like after like 10 seconds, I'm tapping out. Number 6. Okay, you guessed it. It's an asteroid. I mean, not too crazy to think this could wipe out Earth, since it's been said to have been done before. You guys know about the dinosaurs, the dinos? Yeah, they were wiped out by an asteroid.
They now can't see what's headed that way, but they can feel it.
Number 5.
Right now, in the United States, one of the world's largest volcanoes is gearing up to explode. It's known as the Yellowstone volcano. And it's not just any regular volcano. Nope.
Okay, we all know that the Earth has many volcanoes, but there are some massive mountains that are ready to explode, and if they do, all of humanity would wipe out from the devastation. It may not be by melting everyone, but it would cause serious effects on our food crops, and it would block out the sun for several years. Is this real life right now? That would be an alternate reality. And moving along in at number 4, Solar flares in today's world would seriously affect humans if one occurred again that was big enough. The last solar flare in 1859 ended up interfering with small-scale electronics. I mean, in today's society, we rely heavily on electronics for access. Think money to buy food, cars, news, media. I mean, we use it for communications. We use it right now to watch me. We could potentially be taken back hundreds of years to the dark ages and no way to Google ourselves out of it. I mean, a world without Google. I remember a few years without Google. Okay, no, I was too young, but I just can't imagine. Every single day, I'm like asking questions to Google that I need answers to. Tonight, I'm going home and I'm gonna ask Google what happens if there is no Google. Coming at number 3. Okay, so this one isn't exactly a natural disaster, but I had to put it on this list because it is very, very possible. Nuclear war. Considering countries having nuclear weapons, this is a pretty scary reality. A full-scale nuclear war would kill hundreds of millions of people directly, and the aftermath would do irreparable damages to the Earth. Nuclear winter is when the soot from the blast covers the Earth and effectively freezes it over. But these are all theories, and I don't want to personally live through one to find out what would really happen. Number 2, the sun. Well, this one looks happy and cute. I mean, it's depicted as a little baby here. Can anyone guess what show this is from? Leave your guesses in the comment section below. But in all seriousness, the sun is not a baby. In fact, it's really old. It's hella old. And an expanding sun would be the most disastrous way for humanity to end. We don't want Mr. Sun to get any bigger.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's get ready to roast!
The idea of an expanding sun is that it grows bigger as time passes on. The sun getting bigger means it would be in closer proximity to Earth, which would scorch us. I mean, you guys remember this scene from the Terminator? Alright, in at number 1, take a look at this clip. Overpopulation is a very real natural disaster that we're kind of living through right now. It is estimated that the Earth will be home to 10 billion people by 2050. We will still be alive. I mean, 2050, that's only about 30 years from now. The problem and why it all puts all of humanity at risk is because the Earth isn't getting any bigger and we're using up resources faster than ever before. If we can't feed our population or house our population, I mean, we're gonna be in pretty big trouble. Especially if one of these pandemics happen again, human beings can sometimes be the real virus.
Humans identify the closest with the virus. We expand non-stop and we have no stable means of not destroying ourselves without expanding to a new planet. It is not a question of what we do, it's a question of what we are.